1. Live.
And welcome to the Industry 4 Community Podcast. I'm your host with the most, Walker D. Reynolds. Co-host Zachary Scriven is here this week. This podcast is sponsored by, who's our sponsor? Zach, who's our sponsor right now?
This month is MaintainX.
Hey, this podcast right here is sponsored by MaintainX. And actually, we'll talk a little bit about more of that later. Actually, it's kind of funny when I said who the sponsor is. I totally forgot we have a sponsor this month, even though we're going to be shooting all this content. Dude, what's been up? We have a lot to cover in it. We could run for quite a while on this one because we haven't done a podcast in a couple of weeks. I want to kind of tell you where I've been, like why is it you haven't been seeing me shooting a lot of content, kind of what's going on. We have a bunch of announcements, important announcements that you guys are going to want to hear. And then we're going to have a conversation about what we're currently seeing in the market.
Two big announcements.
Yeah, 2 big announcements, and then we'll talk about what we're currently seeing in the market. Some big moves, some big transitions in the market right now. I'm going to kind of warn some people about some of them, and then we're going to have a conversation about unified namespace because, since Prove It, people have been running with the ball, and it's kind of. We want to make sure we align on the definition. Okay. And then we're going to go over some LinkedIn posts, and I'm going to respond to a couple of LinkedIn posts. But with that, Zach, real quick, how you been, brother? What do we got going on?
Good.
How do you enjoy all this new content that you've been, obviously I haven't been filming, and I'm going to explain why it is I haven't been in front of the camera lately. It's just because I'm so busy. And those of you who have sent me DMs, just real quick before Zach chimes in here, I'm going to have to delete all the DMs I have right now. Right now, I got about 4,000 messages that are unread. People who normally reach out to me, I just can't. I just don't have the time to respond to anybody. I've been inundated with speaking requests, big companies asking me to architect their digital transformation, help write their strategies, help write their minimum technical requirements, peer review unified namespace architectures. I've just been overwhelmed. We've been overwhelmed. So what I'm going to have to do, part of what I wanted to do with this podcast today was, if you have sent me a message in the last 2 months that I have not responded to, I'm not going to be responding to it. What we're going to do is we're going to delete every message anyone has sent to me. We're going to start clean today. And if you're a mastermind student and you have a question that you need me to answer, please ask that question in the mastermind channel in Discord. And the team will make sure that question gets to me. If you are not in mastermind, then you can ask. The best place to ask any question is to go to the 4.0 solution. Either you can email contact@40solutions. Obviously, you could do that. You could go into Discord and ask the question. But the best place to go is to go to the 4.0 Solutions LinkedIn page, and on the latest post, ask the question in the comments. And the team, if I need to answer it, the team will bring it to me. You could also do the same thing in a YouTube video. All right. Because what we've decided is there are just too many messages for me to get to. I mean, there are people who I normally talk to all the time. They'll message me on WhatsApp, or they'll message me, they'll DM me because they have my private information, and I'm not even able to respond to them. Okay. I literally have thousands and thousands and thousands of messages I can't answer. And, honestly, it's really getting to me. So part of what I wanted to do is come on here and let you guys know, I can't respond. I can't respond to everything. So we're going to nuke every one of those messages. We're going to start clean today. But if you have a question, best place, if you're in Mastermind, is to go to the Mastermind channel in Discord, go to LinkedIn, comment on the 4.0 Solutions LinkedIn page. You'll notice I haven't been posting on LinkedIn, although I will have a post going up tomorrow, which I'll talk about today. It's something I've actually been working on. But kind of where have I been? We have been planning Prove It 2026. We've been planning Prove It 2027. We have another announcement about Prove It coming up later in the podcast. That I've been working on. We've launched a new initiative to kind of help vendors overcome 3 of their primary problems. So, vendors who have products that Industry 4 professionals should be using. And no one, if they don't know about that product, then that's a brand awareness issue. Most organizations, most vendors have a problem with brand perception. Like, this is a Siemens issue, right? If you ask the average person what WinCC OA is, they're going to say it's SCADA plus. It's just the new iteration of WinCC. It's not. It is an IIoT platform. It's a rapid application development environment. That's a brand perception issue. Okay. And then the third problem that they have is they have a product that people need, but they don't get in front of the people who need it. And so we've tried to figure out, how do we connect? Because this is an issue we have where people will come and go, oh, Walker, what product should I use, X, Y, or Z? So much of what we've been doing is like being the middle person between here's an end user's problem, and we're connecting them with the we're designing the architecture and then connecting them with the products they should be using.
That's what 4.0 solutions was always supposed to be, though, is the place where you go to find the right technology, to find the right integrators, to find the right training, and
correct.
The hardware, the software, all the vendors, basically. Like,
correct. But
4.0 solutions is the one-stop shop for all things IoT.
And so in this part here, it's like, MaintainX is the sponsor for 4.0 solutions, all the content for this month. So I'm pretty sure all of our content will be sponsored content.
Sponsor,
yeah. MaintainX is like the sponsor. And what MaintainX wants to overcome, the issue they want to overcome, when we were doing Prove It, do you know there were 4 CMMSs that we looked at, that there were 4 companies that had a CMMS platform who wanted to,
for anyone who doesn't know,
maintenance management system. So it's opening, it's where you manage PMs and it's where you manage break fixes. Okay. And it generally bolts into inventory management, and then it normally bolts into MES so that you can pick up, a downtime event in MES and then open a work order in your maintenance management system. So we looked at 4 CMMS systems. That there were 4 different companies that reached out who wanted to come to Prove It and do a Prove It session. MaintainX was the only one that even qualified. They were the only one that met the minimum technical requirements to even be able to integrate to the virtual factory. None of the other 3 could.
Both consume and produce.
Correct, which was a requirement. You had to consume and produce. And so any new data and information you generated, you had to publish it back into the UNS. Well, MaintainX was the only one that qualified. The market doesn't know that. Like, their problem is they don't know that the market doesn't know why MaintainX is different. Is MaintainX even actually limited to CMMS? No. That's another thing the market doesn't know. You could build a lot of other solutions in MaintainX that are not maintenance management system functions, right? So anyway, we've been doing this thing with vendors as well. I have been asked to speak. I'm going to give a bunch of announcements. I'm doing a bunch of speeches here just in the next 4 weeks, and then I've been building an internal platform. Oh, it's not an internal. It's going to be for the community. I've been building a platform that's going to solve a problem a lot of people have when it comes to designing and understanding unified namespace. How do I sell unified namespace? How do I design it? How do I build it? And how do I sell it internally or externally? We've been building the internal platform to do that. So with that, that's kind of where I've been. All right. In addition,
how's the ranch?
Yeah. In addition, my youngest son is graduating from high school and college in 2 weeks. And then my oldest son is getting married in 3 weeks. And we have a bunch of family coming in for a whole week. And we've been, we bought a ranch out in East Texas, and we've been doing a bunch of development out there. And so I've just been swamped, literally just buried. I mean, I have, buried. So anyway, that's kind of where I've been. And Zach's really been picking up the slack, shooting this new content, which actually I love. I've been watching, I listened to the videos on the drive out to the ranch and back. And I love the stuff. So anyway, Zach, how do you like the new content you've been producing?
Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter if I like it, right? I used to produce content for the sake of I liking it, but that didn't get me very far in my career. What matters is if the audience likes it. And I like that there's a lot of comments that people are saying, hey, this was valuable. Okay, this was a useful example. We're trying to reach a broader audience, to have a bigger impact. So
that's where the building automation.
We get that question all the time.
Yeah. And we stay away from it. In fact, there are two industries that we are getting involved in that we have generally stayed away from. And I'm going to talk about two of those today. One of them is building automation. Building automation is something we haven't, we've integrated with climate control systems, a lot of like Honeywell climate control systems and with UNS. But we've kind of stayed away from building automation. But the digital fluency in the market, the lines that separate between operational infrastructure and building infrastructure, operational automation and building automation, those lines are becoming blurred as the market gets more and more mature. The other industry that we're getting much more involved in is in the Department of Defense. And I'm going to talk about one of the major shifts we are seeing in the industry right now. Like, for example, if you are an integrator if you're an engineering firm who is working exclusively with the Department of Defense, I'm talking to you, Raytheon. I am talking to you, Lockheed Martin. Okay. You guys are fucked. Let me say something perfectly clear. We are about to see a massive democratization of the vendors who will be working in DoD. Okay. All of those barriers that have been put up so that it's really hard to work in the DoD because you have to meet all these regulatory requirements. And then, you have these incestuous relationships between the vendors who are working in the DoD and the Department of Defense, where the DoD is basically protecting their vendors from competition. That shit is going away. And it is happening at the speed of light. Okay. And the reason why is because it's coming down from the administration that, they are fucking terrified at how far behind manufacturing and product lifecycle management is in the Department of Defense. They're fucking terrified. It is a national security issue. And I don't know this part. I know for sure based on my conversations, all the things that I'm saying right here with multiple contractors with DoD and with people who work in the DoD. Okay. Who have reached out since Prove It. There were people from the DoD who are at Prove It. Okay. And have reached out, and we've had internal conversations about kind of where's the direction going. Okay. And the answer is away from the military industrial complex and towards
Is this a Doge thing?
And this is where I'm going to speculate. Okay. I believe what probably happened based on my experience is Elon looked at how the Department of Defense was contracting products, services, and solutions and was like, what in the actual fuck here? Like, do you realize that you're not working with the best?
Yeah.
Like, think about it. Do you know who you're working with in the Department of Defense? The people who have the relationships, not the best. And I guarantee what he did was he said, hey, listen, there's something wrong here. And I can tell you this, I don't know that part. That part I'm speculating. Right. But what I do know is that internally, the DoD and their partners have all been put on notice. The DoD has put all their partners on notice. Okay? Digital is coming. And we're not limiting our solutions just to y'all.
What about the DOT?
Haven't talked to him. I mean, I haven't. I
think come on. DOT is so underrepresented in digital transformation. There's so much data that we could be gathering that we're just not.
Well, I mean, you are in some. I mean, I've talked about this. Obviously, I talked about this one privileged thing that we can't talk about publicly on the podcast.
Cars that gather data using that data.
Cars that gather data, and municipalities and cities are contracting them to use their data for traffic studies instead of paying civil engineering.
What the smart city infrastructure video is all about.
Instead of paying civil engineering firms to do a traffic study on their behalf. There are several major cities now. The first pilot was in the Northeast, where they're contracting these car manufacturers to use the data off these cars to do the traffic study to no longer do manual traffic studies. So what you have is a continuous traffic study. And I think it's kind of in the vein of what Waze was supposed to be. The problem with Waze is that you kind of had to do, it was community traffic management based on opt-in. Well, you're not opting in if you're driving one of the cars that can collect this data, you're not opting in. That car is collecting the data. Okay. Now, whether it's plugged in real time into the infrastructure, you opt into that. But the data is still used, whether it's used in real time or whether it's buffered and transacted to the cloud after, at the end of the day.
Someone said in that smart infrastructure video that UNS wouldn't scale to like a city-wide infrastructure.
Yeah, and it's funny. I laugh at that. I really do. It's a common statement. And it's always made by someone who's never built anything at scale. That's the thing I find interesting. It's one of the first questions I'll ask. I'll say, okay, well, give me the specific technical reason this isn't going to, tell me what the objection is. Ask me a question, and I'll give you the answer.
I mean, MQTT broker can scale to millions of connections.
Tens up to hundreds. First off, with HiveMQ, there's no limit to the number of connections that you could actually have depending upon your horizontal and vertical scale.
So, okay.
Right. I mean, there's
unlimited.
Yeah. I mean,
we have a maintain.
Okay. Here's how we know it's unlimited, because we haven't hit the limit yet. All we do is add a new node to the cluster.
Facebook
you add a new node to the cluster, and now the queue's no longer filling up. You put, all you do is expand the load balancer. How do you avoid TCP exhaustion? Load balancing. Like, I mean, the people who make these objections, they've never built anything at scale. If the person who has built it at scale, who makes an objection, it literally is the difference. It's me having a conversation with them and correcting the way they're thinking about it. And they're like, oh, okay, now I see that.
So it's like easier for them to find a flaw in it than it is for them to go disprove it wrong or something? Or, well,
first off, everybody's entitled to their opinion. And I want the objection. I want people to challenge. Okay. Anybody who has come to me and said that they're having trouble with their architecture scaling, it's because of the way they're architecting, not the architecture. It's like, come on.
Okay, what about Paul Boris? Because
we'll get to Paul here, and
we'll talk about him. Because
we're going to talk about a comment Rajiv Anand made, and then a comment Paul Boris made on Aaron Semley's post from a week ago. We'll go over those. Those are LinkedIn posts. They're all centered around UNS. We're going to go over those here in a minute. Let me run through these announcements because they're all like really important. So next week on Monday and Tuesday, I'm going out to Santa Clara, California, to Litmus's headquarters for 2 days. Okay. If you guys have any questions that you want me to ask Litmus, please put them in the comments of this podcast or in the chat right now.
Or me too.
I'm going to tell you basically the topics of discussion while we're out there. So when I'm out there, I'm going to be meeting with Vatzel and the development team and Adam Kennedy and all the whole gang. And I want to ask them, how was the announcement at Prove It received and what traction has come from it? That is, they made a fairly large announcement centered around Agentic AI and Litmus and Litmus Edge platform that was the second most important announcement at that show. Honestly, the most important, no question, was HiveMQ Pulse. I mean, that's a game changer. All right. I mean, HiveMQ Pulse is a game changer.
Yeah, what Litmus interview with them too.
Right. What Litmus is announcing was just as a big a game changer. Why? Because it was a place where we could take administrative controls. This is what my statement was. It was like, oh my goodness, this is there's three types of engineering controls in operations, right? You have administrative and engineering are the two primary that you care about, right? And you want to take administrative controls, which are human beings, policies, and procedures, and you want to make those engineering controls where there's, you know, you don't have a human being making the decision in the center, right? You want them executing. The Agentic AI component inside Litmus's Edge native platform gives us the ability to turn administrative controls, that is things from SOPs and policies and procedures, into engineering controls. So now well, okay, I see X problem on the floor. We see the X event. Okay. A standard operating procedure may say, if I see this event, look at these 4 things and make a determination between these 2 outcomes. Okay. These 2 options. A human being does that. If you pick option A, then go to page 46 and do the intervention at page 46. If you pick option B, go to page 51 and do that intervention. Or it may go to page 51 and now go through the similar steps to get to your final intervention, what steps you're supposed to take. That's an administrative control. Engineering controls is automating that process. Here's one of the things that you can't automate. You can't automate things that require advanced reasoning to come to the conclusion, the output. Generally, you're automating binaries.
Basic logic, yeah.
Right, simple logic, okay? What the game changer in Litmus Edge with agentic AI just being embedded in the platform.
I need to go rewatch the Prove It session, because what I took away was actually a little bit different.
Well,
big thing that I took away from their presentation
hold on. They weren't showing how to convert an administrative control into an engineering control.
That's what okay.
My implication when I looked at that, you know, the use case they gave was a simple fucking use case. I'm like, okay, I mean, I could do that with open tools. I'm like, wait, no. The real implication here is that I can take administrative controls that are supposed to apply to an entire organization, and I can automate them as engineering controls through this platform. And so now I can go, and when you use a standard operating procedure in the military, in the fucking military, okay, they just use these huge binders. Do you know what the accuracy is? I think it's a quality measurement they use. How often does a human being do the thing SOP tells them they're supposed to do based on a specific intervention? The answer is, in the military, 60%.
That's actually pretty
6 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
Now, the value for an organization is getting that to 10 out of 10 times if you turn it into an engineering control. So that's part of what I'm going to be talking to them about. Number 2, obviously, Microsoft's investment. That's a huge fucking red flag. Obviously, it's a huge red flag. So does this mean I want to hear from Vatzel? Hey, what is this relationship? Okay, because if you take money
and OpenAI,
yeah, if you take money from Microsoft, Microsoft owns you. And listen, Microsoft is a great American brand. Okay, they're an American company. They employ a lot of people, but make no mistake about it. If you take money from Rockwell Automation, Rockwell's thought is we own you. If you take money from Microsoft, their thought is we own you. You answer to us now. Fuck all your other partners. We don't give a shit about them. You answer to us. By the way, this was the argument about OpenAI. The mistake OpenAI was making with the partnership. Guess what? It was fucking valid. It was valid. So one of the things I want to ask, because I don't know the extent of that Microsoft investment. I saw the press release, or I saw the announcement, and I heard about the announcement afterwards. I'm going to talk about that. Hey, what is the Microsoft investment? Because what I think it is, based on my conversations,
cloud credits or something.
Yeah, what I think it is probably Microsoft is investing in Litmus because maybe they want Litmus Edge to be the edge component of Microsoft Fabric.
That'd be sweet.
And if that's the case, then it is a similar investment to what Google has made, and it's not doom and gloom. It's a really positive thing. I just want to make sure that that's what it actually is, because make no mistake about it, Microsoft telling Litmus what to do would be bad fucking news for everybody. No mistake about it. No mistake about it. Okay? Think about it. Microsoft's the Azure architect for Microsoft is Eric Barnstedt. Okay? The global architect now? He's the Azure architect for, and then Clemens Vaster and those guys, they kind of work under Eric. And you know what? I mean, Eric's a brilliant architect. Don't get me wrong, but there is no evidence. There is absolutely no evidence that group legitimately cares about what happens in the industry at all. There is no evidence whatsoever that they care at all what happens in the industry. Okay, and all I got to do is point to OPC-UA, and all I got to do is point to the previous iteration of Azure IoT that they had to fucking nuke. Okay, and yet all the way up until the moment they nuked it, they insisted this was the platform for industry. Okay, even though
Rob Tiffany will be your.
Even though people like me were saying, no, it's not. No, it's not. Okay. All right. Question number 3 for Litmus. I want to talk to them about what's in their roadmap, because I know they had a bunch of cool features that are coming in, and I want to see kind of where the UNS tool is. They have a really, really powerful UNS tool. I want to talk to them about Prove It 2026, the details, kind of where things stand. I'm going to announce it here today. And then I want to go over what are they doing with Agentic AI, and specifically, are they going to add in MCP support? Model context protocol support.
We got to make sure there's enough ceiling space for that double decker booth, with the executive meeting room up top.
So what I expect when I have the conversation about the Microsoft investment is that it's probably more like what their Google relationship is. But I haven't spoken to them yet. But a lot of you have asked me, hey, Walker, what, you said Litmus or Vatzel promised you that there would be no sale. Isn't this just as good of a sale if you take money from Microsoft? They own you. And I'm like, let me talk to them about it. I mean, yeah, I mean, I suspect that it's a strategic partnership that's limited to using Litmus Edge to help augment Microsoft Fabric. That's what I suspect it is. But until I ask them, I won't know for sure. Later this month, then I have graduation so that's Monday and Tuesday of next week. If you have questions that you want me to ask Litmus, I will ask those questions. So please put them in the comments. I'm speaking at the Siemens Developer Days in Prague on May 27th and 28th. Okay, I'm actually speaking twice there. So I'm going to be giving the keynote on May 27th, and my keynote is digital transformation. Why does anyone care? Okay, and then I'll be
coming to that one too.
What's that?
Vaughn and I are coming to that one too.
I don't know. I mean, I think so. I think there's like 4 people from our team going, and I know we're filming it and all, all that jazz. I think.
Yes. And if my passport gets in here in time.
Yeah. And then on day 2, on May 28th, I'm teaching a mastermind at Siemens Developer Days, which it's going to be 2 75-minute sessions, I think. And it's architecting a unified namespace for digital transformation utilizing WinCCOA. And then my last speaking engagement that's booked before going into the summer, June 12th and 13th, Critical Manufacturing. They make a pretty incredible MES. Actually, I want to talk about this a little bit here in a second. Critical Manufacturing is doing their MES and Industry 4 International Summit on June 12th and 13th in Porto. You can go to Jeff Winter's LinkedIn. He posted about it the other day, and there's a link in there if you want to go to that show. Okay. I'm going to be giving the keynote address on day 1 after their CEO, Francisco, does the introduction. I think there's going to be about 600 people, 600 attendees. I'll be giving the keynote, and my keynote is going to be enabling digital transformation with unified namespace. We actually just finalized what I'm going to be going over, and I actually changed what I was going to be going over because I had a chance to meet with Critical Manufacturing yesterday and get a peek under the hood. I got to see the reference architecture for the platform, how it's bifurcated, and how intellectual property and the open architecture work in with one another. And I have to tell you, I've seen lots and lots of architectures of platforms. And Critical Manufacturing did it right. I actually told them, I said, I'm very impressed with how this has been architected. Like, you can tell that the choices made in the development of this architecture were with a focus on open, while also protecting the intellectual property that's in their modules. For example, in order to, they have an IoT Connect IoT module, right? That connects to the edge. And then from there, you could take a tag from a data point inside of a PLC, for example, and then map that directly to a Kafka topic. And then you can trigger transactions and events off of the changes on those Kafka topics. And the way that they historize events, those events is the same way we historize UNS, using Kafka to S3 to turn transactions into time series. So it was really brilliant. And then the way their use of canonical database, which is the master data model, which they can then expose to a unified namespace, is pretty brilliant. And actually, they showed me a really cool demo of it yesterday. And then they have an extended database that is, more functional, but it's more function focused. So I was actually really impressed with the architecture. All right, with that, any comments about any of those things in the chat? Interested to hear your opinions about the products with brand marketing issues that are leading to misconceptions about their capabilities and uses. Maybe a topic for a mastermind session. Yes, it's actually a great. I would say the companies that suffer the most.
We're going to do a mastermind session with MaintainX.
Yes, yeah. Where I would say brand perception issues.
Not that they have a brand perception issue, but
they do, because their entry point is CMMS, right? They market MaintainX as a CMMS. But is MaintainX actually a CMMS?
It's more than that.
Right. It's a platform, right? You can build non-CMMS solutions in it. It's
plus.
It's CMMS plus. That's what I call it. Okay. Here's one that I think will surprise a lot of people.
Aspect of it is
Tulip. So Tulip is in the process of rebranding. But if you ask the average person in the market what Tulip is, they're going to tell you that it is a MES. They're going to say Tulip is MES. No, it isn't. MES happens to be the primary solutions that MES functions are what people are building using Tulip. But Tulip is really a composable operations platform. Composable is their term, but it's an appropriate term. It's a composable operations platform. What does that mean? It means that the solutions you build using Tulip are designed to be built by citizen developers. It is operator focused. It's designed to be the platform where it's the entry point is the operator, the person Tulip is the interface for the human being. But what makes it unique is how that entry point, I don't know what they call it. They call it a station. That station is the operator's entry point into the infrastructure. Not just the entry point to the screens and functions, but it's the entry point into the infrastructure. So Tulip,
their voice and stuff too.
What's that?
Like their voice?
No, what I mean is it's not
like video camera feed.
Yeah, but Tulip, the station that the operator is interacting with using Tulip, okay, is not just the application that someone built for them. It is the toolkit for augmenting that application. It is the toolkit for building their own application. It is the toolkit for accessing the raw data that's basically in these smart tables behind the interface for the operator. You'll trust an operator with an Excel spreadsheet, right? Well, you know what's in the background of an operations panel in Tulip? It's essentially an Excel spreadsheet. Each application has a smart table running in the background. So they kind of have a brand perception problem. Here's another one. Flow's got a big brand perception problem. Ask people what Flow is. I mean, I've talked to them about this a lot, but ask them what Flow is.
Flow Fuse?
No, Flow software. What is Flow?
I did that on purpose. It's an analytics platform.
Is it? That's their entry point, but is it really an analytics platform? Is it just an analytics platform? I guess that's their entry point.
It has some data modeling capabilities.
But what is Flow's primary like what is it? What makes it so valuable? Why is Flow so valuable?
Because that you can connect to any data source and you can create time series insights from all of those external data sources and merge them together.
Here's the fucking kicker. This is the shit that'll blow you away with Flow. For me with Flow, what always stood out to me with Flow from the first time I ever got a presentation, like in 2018 or whatever it was, and believe me, the platform today is way different than it was back then. There's been a whole rebuild. All the core features are still there, but the thing that always stood out to me was that you could tell that the people who built the platform were the ones who solved the problems for the actual manufacturers on the plant floor. Like, it was obvious. It's just like, mechanics talk about this all the time. When a mechanic works on a car or works on a piece of equipment, they can tell right away whether or not the engineer who designed that vehicle had ever worked on a car before. Because only an engineer who's never worked on a car will put the oil filter in a place where no one can get to it. Right? Where you've got to fucking pull the engine out to, they'll design torque specifications at 128 foot-pounds rather than 86. You know what I mean? So you got to really reef on it to get it. This is a common thing. When I looked at Flow, I was like, oh, this was just like with ignition. It's obvious ignition was built, it's so appropriate. It was built by an integrator. You know what I mean? They're the ones who were solving the fucking problem. So they built the platform the integrator needed. You know what I mean? That's what Flow was. It was like, oh, why is it analytics platforms don't have standard linear regression just baked in to every single line chart that has an XY axis in one line? Why is it that's just not baked in? So if I'm plotting and in Flow, it is. Why? Because the people who built it, were people who were solving the problems for the actual manufacturer. But what is
that's
Flow?
Like the first thing you would do once you've created a data set.
Correct. But look at but Flow has a brand perception issue. In fact, I've even talked to marketing companies about this. I think they had a marketing company call me and they were asking me to describe the platform. But here, where does Flow really stand out? It's the only analytics platform that is designed to quickly bolt into current state infrastructure, unified namespace, and create relationships to the history. So connect to the history and the current state, and then merges the two together to do analysis. And then when they added in the ability to do data modeling and contextualization, which they didn't have before, you weren't able to contextualize and create new information models. Now you can. That's unified analytics framework. It's like, but the average person in the market doesn't know that. They don't know. If you ask them to describe Flow, here's another one. To answer your question, Ian, I think it's Ian. Ian, that's how you spell Ian in Ireland, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. If I'm wrong, Ian, please tell me to shut up. The Portainer. Portainer has a
IT tool.
Yeah, Portainer has a huge brand perception problem. Sedalo and Mosquito Pro, huge brand perception problem. Why? When do I need to move from Mosquito to Mosquito Pro, which is Sedalo? When do I need to move? Nobody can fucking tell you. Yeah. That's a brand perception issue. There are a lot of organizations out there that have brand perception problems. Oh, it's Owen. Thank you, brother. Sorry. So that's Owen in Ireland. I got it. All right, perfect. All right, I want to go over. I just want to finish the announcements real quick. They're all like really important ones. So Prove It 2026. We signed the contracts today. So I want to talk about two things. So our original plan was to go to 50 vendors and 1,000 attendees. for next year. Okay. That's still the plan, but we may go up to 1,250 attendees based on the venue we got. And we may go higher with the vendors. However, I'm going to talk about kind of what you guys can expect at Prove It next year. And then I'm going to talk about a little mid-year Prove It teaser thing. Okay. We signed the contracts today. Most of you may know this, but FIFA is in the United States next year. And Arlington, the city of Arlington, wants Prove It to become like Hanover Messy. So it'll be like Prove It at Arlington Convention Center starting in 2027. We'll be using the esports arena and the Arlington Convention Center in 2027. We can't use it in 2026 because FIFA is, the AT&T Stadium where the Cowboys play. That's one of the stadiums where the World Cup is going to be taking place. And FIFA has reserved the Arlington Convention Center Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of every single week starting January 1st until World Cup is done. And our show is going to run from Sunday to Friday with a travel day on Saturday. So you'll have a setup day Sunday. The show will run Monday through Thursday. Friday is going to be workshops, and then breakdown will be Friday night and Saturday. So the show is going to be at the Hyatt Regency Dallas at Reunion Tower. So if you guys ever look at the Dallas skyline, we have that iconic skyline. There's two things that stand out there, right? The old Prudential building, and then the green ball. That's Reunion Tower. Our conference is going to be there, the Hyatt Regency at Reunion Tower. We will be holding a VIP event in the ball one of the nights. We are definitely stepping up our game. The financial commitment here is enormous. We are literally doubling our budget. Okay. I am on the hook for well over 7 figures now, personally. Contracts are signed. We have 36 of the 50 vendors spots that we have available. Yeah. So our show is going to be where that ball is, the Reunion Tower. That is actually the Hyatt Regency. The Hyatt Regency is below that ball. So in the Hyatt Regency, you get into the elevator, and then you go up the elevator. Yeah, there you go. And then you go up the elevator.
Hotel, dude.
Yes, it's a big convention center. So we have 2 whole floors and 2 enormous ballrooms.
We're going to go up in this ball up here.
Yeah, that's where the VIP event will be. And that actually spins. So the floor actually spins really slowly. So there's a restaurant. Wolfgang Pucks used to be up there, but we're going to have a VIP event held in there one of the nights. So we have 36 of the 50 vendors who will be participating in Prove It. We may end up going higher than 50, but 36 have been committed. So we gave first dibs to the people who participated last year, and then we've added some new ones, and we haven't announced widely yet. We're getting ready to do so. We've set aside some spots for companies we know want to participate. We'll have between 1,000 and 1,250 event attendees. The show is going to be from February 16th to February 20th. That's a Monday through Friday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday will be Prove It. Friday is going to be reserved for workshops that the vendors will put on. Okay. We're still finalizing kind of what the structure is going to be and all that kind of stuff. We know that the cost per attendee we think it's going to be right around $750 per attendee. So end users, we're pretty sure that your ticket cost is going to be in that range. So if you're an end user, a manufacturer, we're still going to keep it at the 60% end users. So we will not allow non-end users to buy tickets. So like we have to have greater than, if we have 61% end users, that releases other tickets for like, say, event OEMs and integrators to buy to attend the show. But we want the attendees to be 60% end users. We want this to be focused on the people with the actual problems. Okay. So that means that this next year, we're going to have between 600 and 750 end users at the show, whereas we had 400 and something this year. Here's what we're kind of throwing around. So there's a big, huge ballroom upstairs, and that's where the main event is going to be. It's bigger than the venue that we had last year. Okay. Where there's going to be 2 stages, just like there was last year. Here's what's going to change. The title sponsors are still going to do a Prove It session, and they're going to do a keynote. The gold sponsors are going to do a Prove It session to everyone. So the entire 1,200 attendees, there will be one Prove It session happening at any given time when the golds are going. The silvers, however, there's going to be a partition closed, and there will be 2 presentations. So if you're a silver sponsor, you're going to be presenting at the same time someone else is presenting on the other stage, and the partition will be closed. And so the attendees will decide which Prove It session they want to watch. Okay, so if it splits 50-50, you'll be presenting to half the audience. We will not have, say, 2 cloud providers presenting at the same time. What we'll do is we'll move to a different layer of the stack. So we may have like an edge provider presenting, if they're a silver sponsor, on stage 1, and a cloud provider on stage 2, and the partition will be closed and people will go.
Are we going just one big giant title sponsor, or are we going to do multiple title sponsors? Like
that's really for Travis. So structurally, last year, Prove It was put on by 4.0 Solutions. Intellic Integration played a huge role.
250,000 title sponsor.
No, I have no. I don't know. You know me. I don't know.
We spent 250,000 for labor.
I know that I had to approve $1.4 million. That's it. All I know is that
2026.
Yeah, last year, this last show I was on the hook for. I had to have $1 million bond, but I was really on the hook for $800,000. This year, I'm on the hook for 1.4 million. I had a 1.4 million bond, but it's a $1.2 million budget. So it's a huge step up in the show. Huge step up. Yeah, we're adding additional days, and so what we're going to test is
I'm stoked.
Yeah, we're going to test this dual track.
I think that makes sense because the gold sponsors then get a bigger stage,
and they're presenting to everybody.
And then the silver sponsors, we can fit more of them in.
Correct. Here's the other thing.
And there'll be multiple sponsors. They're just kind of like the expo hall kind of.
There will be multiple virtual factories. So there are going to be 3 virtual factories, and the vendors will decide which one they want to integrate to. So we're going to have a single site example virtual factory. We're going to have a multi-site example virtual factory. We believe that the single site is going to be in food and beverage. The multi-site is going to be some type of discrete. We don't know what vertical yet. And then there's going to be a life sciences virtual factory. And we are partnering with Skellig to do the life sciences.
Why don't we just have a real factory? Why go virtual? Why not just have a real factory hooked up to this thing?
Legality, risk. I mean, no one is going to agree to that.
Well, maybe they make something simple, like they make pencils, or I don't know, like.
So we should be announcing Prove It, and tickets should go on sale for the show next year. I think in the next month, everything will get announced. But go ahead and save the date. All right, February 16th to February 20th, and we may do an event the weekend before. So that's during hockey and basketball season, based on the way the schedules work out. So if the Stars or the Mavericks are in town, we may end up doing an event. We may end up doing an event at the American Airlines Center. Okay, so if you want to come to Prove It next year, I think in your brain you should really be thinking, hey, I'm going to go Friday to Friday. Okay, because we would probably do an event on Saturday. We would probably do a thing, and we'd have people sign up for it. And then we'd go to this event at the American Airlines Center or whatever, if the Mavericks or the Stars are there, but we'll have to wait until the schedules get released before we would know that. But set it aside, February 16th to the 20th, Prove It 2026 is happening. 3 virtual factories, up to 1,250 attendees, and 50 to maybe 75 vendors. We may end up with the exhibit hall is much bigger this year. And so we may allow a lot more bronze sponsors who have booths set up, but the rules will still be the same. Here's the other thing:
in an integrator area,
we're not doing a proof of next year. Next year, all Prove It sessions will be phase 1 sessions. So this means you're going to be assuming the proof of concept was already completed. All right. Midyear prove it teaser. This is I'm very excited about this. All right, so I can't tell you the details yet. It's going to be 2 more weeks ish. Okay, but we're committed for this. It's going to happen. Okay.
What can you tell us?
Here's what I can tell you. You guys are going to love this. I mean, I'm so fucking excited about it. It's crazy. All right. So a couple weeks after Prove It, the CEO of a large company reached out, and we caught up real quick, and he proposed. He said, "Hey man, what you guys did at Prove It was awesome. I was wondering if you'd be interested in partnering with us on our conference." So the idea would be that you would do Prove It in our exhibit hall at our conference this year. Okay. And he said, what would that look like? And so we went back and we said, okay, what would this look like? If we were going to do this, what would it look like? And we said, what we would do is we do a stripped down virtual factory. We wouldn't go to the level that we do at the Prove It conference, obviously, because the amount of work that takes. We would do a stripped down virtual factory. We would give the vendors 8 weeks to build their solutions. But the kicker is this: the company that puts on this show, they have their own products. Okay. They have their own products that they want the vendors who are at their show to use. So the deal is, for this Prove It session, they will have to use the OEM's products in their Prove It session in conjunction with theirs.
So like platform X Prove It.
Well, no, I don't. I don't know. Not it's going to be product. It's not
product X Prove It.
It's product X Prove It. So whatever, you'll have to use one of their products plus
that's right,
your product to solve a customer problem, and then you're going to do Prove It sessions at your booths, and the rules are the same. What was the problem? What problem how did you solve it? How long did it take? How much does it cost? We're going to be basically, the exhibit hall is going to be Prove It. And we'll have a huge booth there with the touchscreen showing the virtual factory and the UNS. And then attendees will come in and they'll get to walk through, and they'll get to see how each of the individual vendors used this organization's products plus their products. So the continuity thing is everyone is using this OEM's product in addition to theirs. Okay. And we should be able to announce it in the next couple of weeks. Like it is a done deal. We're doing it. Okay. The commitment's there. We are doing it. The announcement will come out in the next couple of weeks. And I suspect their show will sell out like that as soon as everybody finds out. People find out what show it is. So, and then last but not least,
Prove it. I like the Prove It.
I'm going to come back to the edge connectivity, and let's talk about what we're seeing in the market. Nice. Yes, mines will definitely be blown. All right, what are we seeing in the market? Okay, first and foremost, Department of Defense. I cannot tell you the number of companies that are reaching out to me and asking me to architect for them. That's partly where I've been. I've been doing a ton of architectural designs and consulting for organizations around UNS, and I've been vetting a lot of companies. Like I don't know if you guys know this, but like there's a firm out of New York City that hires me, and I do these blind consulting calls on M&A. I consult on mergers and acquisitions for other companies. And there's been the same company has hired me like 4 times now to consult around a certain sector of the market. And then a bunch of like 4 different DoD companies have reached out. I don't work in Department of Defense at all because it's such a pain in the ass. And 4 different companies have reached out to have me consult on their infrastructure. And they're all saying the exact same things. Everything is changing at DoD. Everything is changing. Do you think that's international or just in America? Do I think what's international or just in America? The change in DoD, how DoD now in the West, everyone figures out that they're really far behind, and they need to speed up the rate of increase the digital fluency? I'll say this: DoD is changing big time. And everything that's being communicated to me is, what's coming from the Pentagon is, hey, partners, hey, defense contractors, get your fucking act together. And also, we're going to be opening up this market to competition. So that is, I cannot tell you how big of a fucking deal that is. Okay. So
I've already been done, though. That's the
well, I'm going to say this. If you're working for a traditional DoD contractor, I'd be paying very close attention to the tea leaves. Okay. Because those organizations are not going to be poised to compete with anyone.
Because their digital
fluency is it's the combination of two things. Hubris. Go ahead and talk to anybody who works at Raytheon. Seriously. Their hubris, they believe that it's their blind spot. They don't believe, they can't see it.
They've been king of the hill way too long, and
it's cognitive dissonance.
Uncontested.
Yes. And that's number one. And number two, talk to them about anything architecture related. Anything.
Everything's a silo.
Everything. And they believe it should be that way.
Yeah. It's so ingrained in their culture.
Yes.
They don't understand how it could be any other way.
And so what was the outcome? The outcome is this. And I got to be careful on this part because I can't share anything that's...
Please don't make me edit this when we're done.
Yeah. Okay. let me just say it this way. In the defense world, the United States is far behind in capabilities than our enemies are. Let's put it that way. Very far behind. And when the Pentagon did an analysis,
you're just leaking national intelligence.
No. And when the Pentagon did an analysis, because this part's public. There have been public statements around this. I'm trying to limit it to just what the public statements were. So when the Pentagon took a look, they said, hey, our enemies, they are much faster from concept to delivery, and they are much more efficient in quality testing. What they get from their contractors is of higher quality than what we get from our contractors.
Just on any given vehicle or something?
Anything. Yeah. And so, and the question is why? What about services for government, IT consulting, training? Yes, I suspect, Chris, is a great question. I suspect we are going to see this across the federal agencies. I don't think this is going to be limited to just the DoD. I think a really big one, Department of Energy. So think about how hard it is to work with the DOE right now, or how hard it is to work with the DoD. You're going to see that get a lot easier because there is a philosophical policy belief that we need to increase competition. Now, and that part I know is fact because it's come from multiple people who have told me from their conversations with, their point of contacts at the Pentagon. Okay, I know that's fact. What I speculate is that Elon and Doge played a huge role in that. That Elon looked and said, what in the fuck? What in the fuck? So that's a big deal. Okay. And so if you're an integrator, for example, you're a consultant, there are industries a lot of us stay away from. Like, for example, you either do life sciences and nothing else, or you do everything else but life sciences. Okay. You either do defense, DOE, or nothing else, or you do no DOD and everything else. And the same thing with the Department of Energy. And what I do see as a trend is that government agencies are going to be leaning on the consultants and the service providers who have been transforming the private sector. Okay? That is absolutely the trend. And if you're an integrator, if you're a service provider, if you're a software provider, it doesn't matter which vendors I'm talking to. They're seeing the same shit. There are a lot of vendors out there, software vendors, who are now bringing their software into compliance so it can be used in DoD because they're seeing these trends. So you better have a strategy, even if you don't want to work with the DoD, even if you don't want to work with the Department of Energy. You better have a strategy to incorporate how you would. All right, I'm going to do two other things. Let's go to Agentic.
We got to respond to the Paul Boris comment. That one is too good, man.
Yeah, I want to do this. Let's do Agentic AI here. This is another big trend.
That ties into the Paul Boris comment on
yes,
Aaron Emily's post.
So I have been working over the last few weeks on building a demo. Okay. Actually, we're building a platform, and I've been working with our software developers to build a platform that I really would like to open source if I can. We may have to commoditize part of it because I do have a board of directors and bills to pay. We'll try to figure out how to do it. But we are building a platform that is going to help people design, architect, test, and simulate, monitor, and interact with their unified namespaces. Okay? So that's what the platform is going to be. It's going to be kind of a development tool and a simulation tool. All right? We're well beyond.
Like when you say design, you mean I want to build out my ISA 95 model?
Yep.
Okay.
For my business.
That's on the roadmap.
Yeah. No, it's not. I already have a.
You didn't show me that part.
Yeah. I already have. I'll show you. I already have one that will do that simulation for you.
Okay.
So it's pretty slick. I know for me, it's very useful. When someone asks me a question about UNS, I just go to this tool that we've built.
Was this something that you kind of built for Prove It? That you're like, hey, I want to turn this into a product.
I built it after Prove It. It came from all these. It came from all these questions that I got at Prove It about something that's missing in the market, and I'm like, well, no one would build this. You know what I mean? Because it's like, why is there no better MQTT Explorer? Why is it? Go ahead and try to find a better MQTT client. You know what the better MQTT client is than MQTT Explorer? Ignition. Okay. And what's cool about Ignition is Ignition turns MQTT topics into Ignition tag objects, which makes it very unique. Whereas an MQTT Explorer turns a topic into root and leaf nodes in a tree structure. But why is it no one's built a better MQTT Explorer? Why is it we don't have 5 choices? MQTT Explorer is the only one out there that gives you all the stuff we need, right? But what's missing is a tool for designing UNS, simulating UNS, architecting UNS, testing UNS, and interacting with one. That tool is missing. And so we've built it. Here, part of what I built in there is a simulator for Agentic AI. I want to caution the industry here. I love all the stuff that people are doing around the art of the possible. Aaron Semley's doing a lot of great content around Agentic AI. So is Mark Friedman from Tulip. I'm getting a lot of questions. Hey, Walker, what am I supposed to be doing with Agentic AI? And the answer is, I don't know if you should be using it at all yet. Okay, we are right now, what Aaron and Mark are doing is the art of the possible. They are reframing the way you think so you know kind of the direction you're going. You're going to be using AI agents to interact with data infrastructure to make decisions. And those agents are going to interact with one another. Okay? So it goes far beyond a chatbot. Okay? All right. But here, if there's anything I could communicate, everyone's making the same mistake with Agentic AI. I'm going to shoot a video tomorrow. I will publish and I'll show you what that mistake is. I'll show you the solution to that mistake. But everyone's making the same mistake. Okay? They are turning their AI agents into black boxes. Little hint. Okay? So the reasoning that the agent is using is hidden from the infrastructure. So therefore, the reasoning can't be stored. If it's not being published into the UNS, it's not going to be stored in context and normalized to other data points. Therefore, it can't be used for finding patterns in data we can't see with the naked eye.
So that would be like the parameter values of
Correct.
the model?
It may be the prompt. It may be which models it's using at that time. It may be the same prompt from an operator. You want to make sure that when a prompt is passed into an agent, you want to know what that prompt was. Okay, and that's actually an attribute of an agent. You'll oftentimes see that in a JSON. There will be like a key value pair of what the prompt was. You want to be able to tie that prompt to what the reasoning was. Guess what? Artificial intelligence hallucinates. In 3 days in a row, I want you to ask a large language model the same question 3 days in a row. And you will not get the same answer 3 times in a row. You won't get the same answer 2 times in a row. You're going to get a different answer. So part of what we have to do is we have to track the reasoning itself. And everyone is missing it. All these brilliant people are missing it. They're not going, hey, this is part of the reason Claude is so powerful as a large language model. Claude, by default, their API reports back to you the decision-making process. OpenAI doesn't do that.
Really?
Yeah, Claude by default does it. It's part of their API. So I have a video that's coming tomorrow where I'm going to be showing a demo and I'm going to be talking about this, but for those of you who are getting with Agentic AI, here's my message to you. You got to stand before you walk. You got to walk before you run. Okay? Most of you are not ready for Agentic AI. Why? Because most of you don't have the data infrastructure. Why? Because very few of you have mastered the art of connect, collect, store in your organization.
Yeah.
So to that end, we are doing Trent Christopher. What is Trent's company's name? Please pop that up here. I can't remember. It's 4.0 Hero. That him? Okay. Trent Christopher, formerly of Omron. Okay. He's an edge guy, instrumentation guy, fucking brilliant, great software developer. Yes. UMH has a great UNS integrated. Alex. Absolutely. Huge fans of UMH. By the way, so is Trent Christopher and at 4.0 Hero and Brian Pryby at Mock Controls. They used UMH in their Prove It session at Prove It this year. Trent Christopher is going to be doing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's 2-day workshop.
3-day.
3-day workshop.
It's edge integration into unified namespace.
All right, hold on. He sent it to me here. Here we go. All right. So
this is the missing link. This is the missing link of our training.
June 17, 18, and 19. For those of you in Mastermind, okay? There is no Mastermind session in June. There's a workshop that month. June 17, 18, and 19, starting at 9 a.m. each day. Trent Christopher is going to be doing edge connectivity and the UNS workshop. Okay? It's 4 hours per day, interactive exercises. It's primarily for engineers, solutions architects, controls engineers, digital transformation leaders, and anyone who is building or supporting a UNS in industrial environments. This is primarily going to focus on connect, collect, store. Okay? That is a prerequisite. It is the stand part. It is the stand part that you have to have before you can walk with Agentic AI. Okay? It is the stand part. Okay? Connect, collect, store is standing. All right? This is going to be for an intermediate to advanced technical professionals. All right? And I want to read why we're doing this. Because many people, my biggest fear with Agentic AI is that people who are at the bottom of the technology S-curve, they have not finished becoming a smart business. Connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize, find patterns, report, solve, iterate. And now I've got this big, expansive data infrastructure, contextualized, normalized, semantically organized. Okay? That's what your AI agents are going to interact with. Okay? They're not going to just interact with Model Context Protocol, MCP, to go get historical data. What you are going to be doing is using AI agents to look at current state, to trigger decisions, to go get old data, to make decisions about what to do about current state, to mitigate the future.
That's the connection right there.
Right? Everyone is missing this.
That's what a human being would do.
Right. Everyone is missing this. Everyone is missing. Everyone who's talking about agentic AI, what's the value?
My boiler is not performing well. Let me go look at the trend of the temperature.
Correct. What you're going to do is agents are going to monitor the data for what you are going to say is the abnormal event. If abnormal event, now I want you to go through this sequence.
This is where Flow software plugs in really nicely with their exposing those endpoints for an MCP agent.
And I think Aaron Sebley at HighByte is doing the best job right now of demonstrating the art of the possible. Okay. Now in Mastermind, I showed, hey, here's some things he's not doing that are going to be kind of important, but that's not his focus. His focus is the art of the possible right now. Okay. So I'm going to be shooting a video tomorrow to kind of go over this. All right. But let's read this guy's comment here. So Aaron Semley, he posted a week ago, he said UNS does not connect with AI agents, okay, MCP. It actually does. AI agents can monitor the UNS in real time, and we actually do that through data caches, okay? So how do you do that? I have an agent that has a data cache running. It's basically it's temporal. All the last events are stored in a data cache. When the next set of events comes in, the cache is cleared, and the only thing that the large language model sees is the latest data cache. It is interpreting the latest data cache for it's looking for a pattern that makes it want to take action. Okay. We're triggering it based on some event. Okay. And Aaron has showed how to do this using HighByte. Where model context protocol comes in is once I pick up the event, either in the data cache or whether I pick up that event, like say I'm using a platform like HighByte that is looking for an alarm that will then trigger the agent. Okay. Which we can also just have the agent running in a loop, monitoring a data cache, okay, a data stream, the stream of the current state running right underneath it, and it picks up the event, so it can monitor for more than one event at a time. It can monitor for one of 100 events. The prompt can be, if any of these 100 conditions. Then what happens is it does advanced reasoning. It says, okay, I've seen this issue. Okay, interpret this for me. It sends it uses a prompt, hits the endpoint of the large language model. The large language model then goes through some advanced reasoning. It has the documentation for the model context protocol. The large language model will respond with, okay, go hit these three methods. Okay, go hit these three methods from our historical data. And based on those results, we will interpret those results and then we will reason what our step should be. Okay, two things are missing. Number one, yes, AI agents do interact with a UNS, but model context protocol doesn't. Model MCP is not an agent. MCP is a tool that agents use. Okay. All right. So he said MCP is a request response server. UNS, at least the classic definition, is a report by exception MQTT. However, current state is all of the latest values for all of the topics in the namespace. Okay. You can't stream data into ChatGPT. No, you can't, but you can cache it and then send it to ChatGPT as one cache. You can do that. ChatGPT decides when to request data from a given source, given a prompt or instructions. Absolutely, when it comes to the MCP component. This is nuanced but important. Any demo you see of UNS to AI agents is done one of the following. Feeding snapshots of the UNS into a chat context. Yes, like taking a cache and sending it. Okay. Or putting an API around the UNS to make it queryable. Yeah, I see that less, but that's a good example.
Share the screen you're looking at. I think I pulled up the wrong comment.
No, you have to. It's his comment under. His comment is on Aaron's post. I'm reading
Got it,
Aaron's
okay.
post first.
Oh, I was reading his share.
All
Okay.
right. This isn't an attack on UNS. Everything we do to contextualize factory data in a UNS is valuable. I just don't want people to think that the two can be instantly connected. They can be, but you MCP, like for example, I can store the list of MCP, the model context protocol methods. I can store those list of methods in a UNS, and I can, in a chatbot, can consume that context from the data cache. Now, why you would do that, I would just use HighByte to do it, because HighByte has implemented it incredibly well. Going one step further, I'd argue that although current state of the factory is useful and a good starting point, you need all the other data, history, MES, quality systems, to really get value out of agentic AI. No question there. Should the definition of UNS expand, and will AI drive this? The definition of UNS will not expand. Okay? UNS, Unified Namespace, is the structure of a business and all the events. It is an architecture. Okay? So the event is not the data stores that that an agent needs to go retrieve. But here is an event. Okay? An event is when I've instantiated the list of MCP methods that my agents can use. Here's another event. When an agent is taking action. Okay? So in fact, I will share my screen here, Zach.
Right. So you need to understand what an event is, and when you consider the context of every event, you can use the standard definition of a unified namespace, which is the structure in the events.
Correct. I'm going to share my screen here.
Is bolting onto it and interfacing with other applications.
Say that again.
MCP is bolting onto it and interfacing with other APIs.
Correct. Yes. Absolutely. All right. Let me move this over here.
I mean, I was saying every text message that employees sends to another should be part of the UNS. Like, why is it that we have context that's in?
Well, because again, people have to expand. People have to expand their minds.
If I send you an email saying, "Hey, we need to turn on this chiller and we need to change the set point," and then you go do that, both events should be tracked. The email and you changing the set point. But currently, only you changing the set point is tracked.
All right. So what I want you to do, go ahead and show my screen with the Explorer.
Yeah, it's showing. It's showing.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run. So this is my simulator manager. By the way, this is part of the platform that we've been working on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just run an agent demo. And so what's happened is I've got a couple of production agents running. Okay. So production agent 2, this is using MCP. I have a production agent that's running in the press area. Okay. The supervisor put in an input. Why is line 1 rejecting so many parts today? Okay. We're using Claude 3 Sonnet. Okay. The model status is healthy. We're using a chat NLP interface. All right. Here are the calls that were executed based on that chat. Why is line 1 rejecting so many parts today? Okay. We're in the press area. We passed in this data source and we got we called get rejection data for line 1, get the shift report for line 1, and get the set points for line 1 so that we could answer this question. This piece is missing in all of these examples. By the way, why is line 1 rejecting so many parts today can be driven from data that we see in line 1. That is the agent monitoring the current state from the data cache. And then this is an example of we're predicting cycle time and a production agent at the production line. This is Agentic AI. This is a demo of Agentic AI and how it interacts with a unified namespace in real time. And so if I wanted to show you what that looks like relative to a bunch of other, data in a UNS. So now what I've got is my agents living right alongside all of the live data. And I'll show that video more completely, or that demo more completely in the video tomorrow. But the thing that I want to stress to you is, if you don't have a mature unified namespace, okay, you won't even be able to scratch the surface on the value of agentic AI. Okay. And if you don't have a plan for integrating the decision-making process from your agents into your UNS, which your UNS is current state, then you don't have a UNS anymore. Okay. All right. Let's finish what his
Paul's comment.
Yeah, Paul. All right. So Paul Boris says, Aaron, here's where I get stuck. All of this is intended to reconstitute context that has been stripped from the data during its collection. I'm here to learn, so educate me. Well, I would say no, it's not reconstituting, it is generating. And the context was never stripped during its collection. The context, sometimes there's an important concept in context. So I'm assuming Paul is probably IT. Yeah, he's got to be on the IT side. So in manufacturing, you have additive context. So, I mean, this is why digital thread always failed. Because an event that happens on the edge 60 times per second needs to be contextualized and normalized against events that happen at L3 60 seconds later and only at every 60 seconds. That UNS contextualizes and normalizes them together. This is why object-oriented programming can't be universal in digital transformation. There is no object you can throw down on the edge that's going to encapsulate full context of data and information in your business. It's additive. As it moves around, as transaction takes place, the context changes. UNS gives you the ability to add that context as it's being in real time, as an event. All right. Nearly every move of data away from its source strips it of some sort of context by definition,
That's not
or it
true.
is replication. And for the vast majority of shops, full replication is impossible or unjustifiable. Think of a summary of a machine repair. It has all sorts of compression loss unless it's a full motion video of the activity and a narration by the actors that is driven by a QA to expose the reasoning behind looking at pneumatics versus hydraulics first, or something like that. I disagree with
fallacy.
his.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
fallacy.
I disagree with his premise.
Falsifiability.
Yeah, I disagree with the premise there. The effort to contextualize factory data exists because, well, we stripped context from the root data via compression or missing. No, we didn't. The missing association, there was no association there to begin with.
Your work order is not in your PLC.
Correct. It's not. What you're doing is you're piecing the context together as it moves up your infrastructure based on how your business runs, which functions your businesses utilize, and which transactions you fire, and the rate at which you collect the events, and you're piecing them together. UNS is where all that coalesces together at the same time. It is the infrastructure upon which things communicate with one another, and then we semantically organize it so that context is native, right? One of the things that he's missing, and I think this is a thing that most people miss, a data point doesn't live in just one place in the UNS. Like the same temperature, the value off of the same temperature sensor could be in 20 different places.
Right.
Because we're organizing it, we're contextualizing it based on where that temperature is used in functions of the business. This is the fundamental. It's a fundamental architectural difference.
For example, ambient temperature. You may only have one ambient temperature sensor, but every production line that you're producing equipment off of may want to know what the ambient temperature was.
And so,
that's context you would need to add further up the stack.
Correct. You may have a preventative maintenance function. Okay. You may have a preventative maintenance function on each of your printing presses, for example. Okay. So I have one ambient air temperature on the ceiling of the building. So when I get to the site, enterprise site, under site, I would have ambient air temperature sensor. It would say edge, and then ambient air temperature. That would be the sensor.
You may also have line one.
But you may have it in line one under preventative maintenance function. One of the inputs that it is using may be the ambient air temperature. We may change the rate of preventative maintenance, triggering our PMs based on what the ambient air temperature has been over time. You may see ambient air temperature in many places in the UNS because it's wrapped in functional wrappers. It ingresses through an edge namespace, but then it is wrapped in functional wrappers in many places in the UNS.
In simple terms, you're referencing that namespace topic in other places of the namespace.
Correct.
Yeah, I think you're talking all over people's head right there. I understand what you're saying, but
yeah, as an alternate, if we
could, people are gonna be like, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah, see, look at what Paul is saying here. This is as an alternate. If we could access the root reliably and deterministically, then we can inherit context. He's talking about object-oriented data modeling. So no, this is digital thread where he's literally
it's all backwards.
Right. So the issue is and I commented here. I'm not going to read the rest of it. What it is
Diet Coke. What is the Diet Coke test? I don't understand that.
What's that?
What is his Diet Coke test?
The Diet Coke's test is we'll read his explanation. But Fred and I are on third shift Sunday. A couple of rookies. The machine is beginning to get wonky. My grandpa always used to dump Diet Coke in the gears in his shop. Said something about it thinning the grease, and Fred said to give it a shot. Will the super whammy dine next-gen AI monitoring all the data that I can catch know about the Diet Coke? Is that data captured anywhere ever? Yes, it's captured in the CMMS. Or is an AI concluded that the most likely reason is the combination product thickness divided by the square of the humidity in the shop? No. If the event of dumping Coca-Cola on the gears must be captured in a UNS. And oftentimes the way it is captured is through CMMS. So the machine.
What a great way to wrap up this podcast.
The rising edge of the event is machine is wonky. That rising event triggers a work order, a work order in the CMMS in say Maintenance. Okay, Maintenance. That work order gets assigned to a maintenance person who goes and talks to the operator. The operator says, "Hey, my grandpa said I used to be able to dump Diet Coke on the gears and it would fix everything." Okay. So then what does the mechanic say? He says, "Let's do it." So he goes to inventory and he checks out a bottle of Diet Coke. Okay. He checks out a bottle of Diet Coke. That event gets picked up in the UNS, Coke retrieved. And now he goes and he dumps it. And then when he's done, he inputs into his notes, "Hey, the solution here is we dumped Diet Coke on there. All thing is well. We're work order completed. Machine restarts. We pick up the rising edge of the restart. And now what's been stored is an event of from this rising edge to this falling edge of this rising edge of our downtime to this falling edge of our downtime and this rising edge of our restart. The intervention of this downtime was we dumped Coca-Cola on the gears."
That's why MaintainX is so important, because it can track that full life cycle of that maintenance.
And not only that, it can publish it into the UNS as an event with that downtime. So while state is zero,
to answer your question, Paul, yes. If you're using MaintainX, yes, it can pick that up.
I'm not picking on Paul here. What I'm saying is that Paul is definitely coming from this. I don't know what his background is. Is he a software developer? He's got to be an IT guy. Yeah, he says manufacturing. What's his background?
Transformation?
Strategic accounts, manufacturing. He
looks like UiPath.
He looks like he's been a
IT kind of guy.
Chief operating officer.
GE.
He was at GE Digital. So yeah, he's thinking digital thread.
SAP for 9 years.
Yeah, he's thinking digital thread. So here's the issue. Let's talk about what the issue would be there. And then I want to do Rajiv's thing and then we're done. I want to answer Rajiv. Okay. I just shot this video earlier and I'm not going to publish it. You want to know what one of the number one problems we have with digital transformation in our industry? Software developers and engineers aren't nearly as fucking smart as they think they are. And they don't know it. Okay. Let me say this. If you are solving problems for manufacturers and you have no manufacturing experience at all, you have never worked on the plant floor,
go back.
Then then you do not know manufacturing. Okay, so I want all of you, software developers, engineers, consultants, I want you to ask yourself, how much manufacturing experience do you have? It is no mistake. Okay. It's not accidental that I have 12 years working in manufacturing, starting shoveling belts to, driving a pickup truck around a mine, trying to find a tripped flagged E-stop on, 100 miles of conveyor, to troubleshooting, out of phase 4160, the impact of a swapped L2, L3 leg on a 4160 feed midway through our power distribution system to and its impact on power factor coming at the transformer out in the face box that is driving the roof bolters and the drills, all the way to the the implication of pneumatic control, the reliability of pneumatic control when fired by electric control. So electric over pneumatic control and stitching machines. Here, if you don't know how manufacturing works, like if you disagree with this statement, okay, there is only one thing that matters in a manufacturing environment. And anyone who tells you otherwise is fucking lying to you. The only thing that matters is production. Okay? For 12 years in my career, not one time did an organization, when they truly had to choose between safety and production, did they choose safety. They always chose to turn a blind eye, because the safety is something they do when they can afford to do it. Quality is something they focus on when they can afford to focus on it. I have literally seen operations managers ship product that they knew was garbage, didn't meet our quality standards. They shipped it anyway because that manager made a calculation. They were doing calculus in their head. They were looking and they were going, this procedure says don't ship this. However, we have this enormous penalty on this contract with this client. And what is the likelihood that this quality issue is going to come back to haunt us? It's pretty low. But what is the likelihood that we're going to have to pay out $500,000 for the missed shipment if we're late? It's 100%. They will weigh, okay, we're going to break the rules. And it happens all the fucking time. They'll make the decision. You, Mr. Process Engineer, you will go, we're only going to use these approved raw materials for this subassembly going into manufacturing this finished good. Guess what? That goes out the fucking window the moment they don't have that raw material and they got one that's good enough.
Comes online.
They got a good enough one. Okay? That's the way manufacturing works. So you want to know why unified namespace has worked so well as an architecture? Because it operates in reality. It doesn't operate in theory. This is the reason its adoption. Yeah, it's the reason its adoption has exploded. It doesn't paint anyone in a fucking corner. And you have all these architects all over the world going, well, unified namespace seems so simple to me. Why is it? And it seems so pedantic. And it seems so provincial. Well, guess what? You're not that fucking important, dude. You want to know who's important? You want to know who the most important people in any manufacturing operation are? It's the people who do the actual fucking work. And you know why? Because they are tasked with producing the shit that pays the fucking bills. No process engineer. Let me say this. There isn't a process engineer on the planet who is more valuable than a press operator who's been operating a printing press for 30 years. You are not more valuable, even if you've been a process engineer for 30 years. You're not more fucking valuable. You are not more valuable than the front end loader who's been running front end loaders for 30 years, back when they didn't have hydrostatic transmissions. They were hydraulic over hydraulic control originally, the original generation. Then they were hydraulic or pneumatic over hydraulic control. Then they were electric over hydraulic control. And then they were electric over hydraulic via remote control. That operator 30 years of running a front end loader across 4 generations of technology is 100 times more valuable than the fucking process engineer.
What about the data that came from that?
Here's the problem in digital transformation. You know where the data is? It's in that operator's head.
Well, but if you had the data from all of that 30 years of operating that, plus all of every other operator,
you're getting right to my point. You know, the best time to do anything was 5 years ago. The second best time's fucking today. Okay? What is digital transformation supposed to be about? It's about unlocking the potential in your frontline employee. And what is the biggest potential in your legacy employee? All that fucking knowledge in their head. But what do you do?
The Diet Coke.
It's you know, Jared, my son Jared was talking to me about a thing that was going on at one of his clients. And he was going, hey, we're having this issue with, you know, basically they have this material definition thing. They want to enforce these you know, the software guy wants to, or the operations guy wants to make the operators only use the materials that he pre-selects when they do this. So they have to be limited to, and it's called the checklist, materials checklist. He goes, but then they override it all the time anyway. And I go, well, of course. Like 100% of the time is to
do something that you just can't do.
Right. He wants to do something that he can't do. It's your job to tell him. Did you talk to the operators about this? The operators are going to tell you whether or not that's fucking possible. Whether or not you listen to them, that's a completely different story.
Also, the scrap category. I know he was talking about.
Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. Okay. Software developers and engineers, of which I am one, you are not that fucking important. Get it through your head. You must. The most important people in the organization are the people who do the actual work. And if your focus is not on solving their problems, then you are wasting your time, you are wasting their time, and you're wasting the organization's time. Okay? Digital thread came from people who thought they knew better. They were fucking wrong. If they had worked on the edge at all, if they had ever actually worked in manufacturing, they would have known it is impossible to create a digital object that applies across 2 assets, let alone 2,000.
But a unified namespace is a reflection of what's actually on the plant floor.
A UNS is an architecture that is designed to collect the reality as it is. Rather than trying to enforce a theory on reality, you can never enforce.
We have to hit Nats, so we still have to hit the Nats IO thing. But I have a question.
Oh yeah, I'll do Nats.
I've never asked you this question.
Let me answer the Nats thing. Let me answer the Nats thing. Okay. All right. You'd like to know more why I held back on Nats. A lot of people have asked me about Nats. Okay. Over the last year and a half. I've had an opinion on Nats for a year and a half. I've talked about it privately. Here's what I suspected. The demand for one of the things my father used to tell me all the time is you have to understand, Walker, there's always going to be lots of noise out there. There's always going to be lots of noise. Okay. And most of it's just marketing. Most of it's people creating demand. I mean, do you know that there are, look at McAfee. Look at where McAfee antivirus came from. Okay. Look at where antivirus software came from. It was the people who wrote the viruses who then wrote software that you needed to buy from them to save you from the viruses they wrote. Okay, what they did was they created demand where no demand existed. They created the problem that they would then solve and sell the solution to. Okay? One of the things that my father used to say was you must understand the incentive and who's incentivized. The demand for Nats came from nowhere. When people started asking me about Nats, I tried to figure out where that was coming from. Like, no one's done anything great with it. There is no like gold standard example. Like on paper, Nats looks impressive. It looks impressive. But there's no achievement. So where was that demand coming from? So you have to go to who is incentivized to create it. So I went back and I looked at Synadia and I looked at kind of how they, they basically, it's NATS is their protocol. Okay. They made it open, but they reserved the right to close it. Most people didn't know that. They reserved the right to close it. And now that's a common clause in the licensing. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to wait and see. And if I see a big achievement with NATS, some architecture that just blows my fucking mind, okay? Say Boeing turns it around using NATS for their digital infrastructure, then I'll look a little deeper and we'll start talking about it. Is this actually open, edge-driven, report by exception, and lightweight? Because at face value, it looks like it checks off the boxes. But the fact is, it's not really open. It's not open for the same reasons OPC UA is not open. Okay? And the press releases that came out, look at what's happened. NATS, the CEO of Synadia nearly destroyed, right? Synadia I'm saying the name right. Vaughn, I'm saying the name right. Put that up in the chat. Yes or no? Synadia? Yes. Okay. Thank you. So a press release came out earlier this week saying that Synadia had essentially announced that they were going to close NATS, that it was their intellectual property. They were the ones who were doing all the work, and they were going to close it, and they were going to wrap it back into their product. They basically were going to take an open standard or wrap it in closed IP. Okay. The backlash was swift and huge. Literally 2 days after Vaughn did the post, or whoever did the post about NATS, 2 days later, that press release came out. Then the CEO of Synadia came out with his own press release the next day going, whoa, wait. And he was trying to explain it. They're getting fucking blasted from every side. And then a new press release came out today trying to clarify, no, in fact, they're trying to walk back the statement that it was going to get closed. And so now you know why I wasn't talking about it. There are many companies that come to me and they're like, hey, look at my tech. Okay. Look at this awesome tech we have here. And I'm like, great. What are your values? What are your mission? What's your goal with this tech? Like, with Litmus wanted me to promote their product like in 2019. But when I asked them the question about it, really looks like you guys are like, you're looking for an exit. It really looks like you're building this company to sell it to a major player. And I'm not going to promote a product that ends up in the hands of Rockwell or Schneider or Microsoft or whatever. And it wasn't until I met with Vatzel and he said, listen, no, our plan is to, he gave me his word. I guarantee you, we are not selling this company in the next 5 years. He guaranteed it. And I take the man at his word. Okay. And his values lined up with mine. So then I said, okay, yeah, it's great tech. From the very beginning, I thought it was great tech. But the tech alone isn't enough. The values of the people who created and control that tech are just as important, or if not more important, than the tech itself. Okay?
How do you calculate that?
Well, I mean, I think it's part of my value in the market, if I'm being honest with you.
No,
part of my
it's like an emotional thing, and you're trying to put a
my brain operate my brain operates looking for the incentive. Like when Arlen Nipper and Andy Stanford Clark, who are the co-inventors of MQTT, okay? Mm-hmm. When they decided that they were going to give the MQTT standard to the Eclipse Foundation and make it open, okay? And yet Arlen's company, CirrusLink, was going to be the primary contributor to the standard. And then he has a company that is using this technology, CirrusLink. Well, he had Alexis. He was owner of Alexis that made gateways that used MQTT. So it converted proprietary protocols into the open MQTT standard, lightweight for like serial networks and stuff, right? Over VSAT and cellular. He was making his money taking open to the world. So he had no incentive to close MQTT because the more people who were using MQTT created an incentive for people to use his products. So that was a scenario where the incentive structure was set up where MQTT remained incentivized to be open. And then once Facebook adopted it for Facebook Messenger, now it's not going anywhere. Once it's the backbone of Facebook Messenger, then it's going to remain open forever. So I did that same homework when I was introduced to MQTT, but it was obvious that the incentive structure was there's no way this is ever getting closed. The incentive structure is for it to remain open. That is not the same incentive structure for Nats. First off, the demand for Nats came from nowhere. It was being promoted by Synadia. And then this week, now just as it gains traction, just as it start gaining traction, hey, we get this press release, no, they're going to take back ownership of it. It's not going to be closed. We're no longer going to support open because we're doing all the work. This is our intellectual property.
That's a switch if I've ever heard.
Dude, his fucking one. Dude, let me Vaughn, what's the name of that CEO at Synadia? That motherfucker's career is over. It's over.
Derek Collison.
No one will ever no one is
invite him on the podcast.
Yeah, because I'm Derek, no one is ever going to listen to him ever again. Anybody who knows this story will never listen to him ever again. And he knows it. He's fine. He knows it. So, but I'll say this, as always, if I mentioned your name on this podcast and I said something that you disagree with, you can come on the podcast and I will give you a forum to defend yourself. It is only right.
Talk about Nats, honestly.
Yeah, I would love to talk about Nats. And I would love to hear from Derek because right now there's zero chance Nats will not be included in the list of protocols that you can use for UNS. There is no way I will fucking promote it that way. None. There's no way. None. And what I said to Vaughn, when Vaughn sent me that press release, Vaughn's the one who sent me the press release, I said, I fucking knew it. We had this whole conversation. And I'm like, Vaughn, I said, Vaughn, this situation, he'll tell you right now. I said, this situation right here is just one reason why I've been so successful in my career. I've made these decisions. They've come from inside my gut. And I was right. I fucking knew it. All right, I want to do one last thing and then sorry, I know we've gone forever, but probably nobody left, but the people listen to it on Apple Podcast. All right, Rajiv Anand did a post. He did a comment on a 4.0 Solutions post. Rajiv is a very active member of the community, follows all our content, and very valued member of the community. So he says, UNS is more than the edge. Yes, it is. No one's ever said UNS is the edge. You guys need to stop imposing your, in quotes, minimum requirements. You are not the buyer or the user. Please stop conflating a data architecture construct, UNS, with communications protocols. Okay. We're not conflating. What we are doing is we are talking about the relationship between data architecture and protocols. Can you have a protocol without a unified namespace? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Can you have a unified namespace without a protocol? Yes or no?
It would exist only in theory.
It would exist in your fucking mind. It wouldn't exist anywhere. All right. So we are not conflating. We are not conflating communication protocols in UNS. We are simply
you need a protocol.
We are simply pointing out the relationship between the two. What are the minimum technical requirements for those communications protocols? They must be what for a UNS?
Open architecture, lightweight, edge-driven, and report by exception.
Thank you. Those are those are descriptions, parameters, requirements, technical requirements of a protocol. A protocol could be open, edge-driven, report by exception, and lightweight, or it could be a couple of those things and not the others. Okay. All we're doing is we're talking about the relationship between the two. And we make it very clear the difference between I have said 1,000,000 times that the most common protocol that we use for UNS is MQTT.
What if we were to design our own protocol, like from scratch? How would you
don't need to? We've got great protocols. We've got, if you take, let me say this. If you
So
take
there's nothing you would fix about it, or
if
you
you
would
take
you would extend it.
if you take MQTT, HTTP, TCP/IP, OPC/UA, and SESME profiles with the spark plug specification, those 6 things, you have everything you need. You got there. What other?
You would need a structured query language.
What's that?
You would need structured query language.
No, I don't need that as a protocol
to digitally transform a factory.
Yeah, but that's not a protocol.
It's a programming language.
What's that? It's a standard. It's a standard, but it's not a communications protocol.
Okay. You're communicating over. You're
communicating over a protocol to execute that language.
TCP connection.
Yeah, you're wrapping it in a TCP transport. So he says, you've done a fine job of educating a certain audience. Please don't confuse them. We are confusing them by, I think what he's saying is we're saying UNS is edge. We do not say that. We say that UNS is a function of where you enter an architecture. We also say that UNS is the structure of your business and all the events. We do not say it's edge. In fact,
we say it extends to the edge.
Yes. In fact, we say it originates on the edge, honestly. So a user has an MES system, an actual case running in the cloud. Data from it is being shared in the UNS along with OT data from the edge. You want them to bring the MES data to the edge, convert it to MQTT so it can meet edge-driven requirements. Really? No, we do not want it to do that. So is Rajiv in Mastermind?
I don't
Vaughn?
think so. I don't believe so. No, Vaughn says no.
Okay. So Rajiv, in Mastermind, we teach I show the architecture that you generally deploy UNS. And it's generally a 3-tiered architecture. So you'll have an edge broker, you'll have a site level broker, generally in the DMZ, and then you'll have a cloud level broker. And then we go, so that's the vertical integration, that's the vertical scale, and then you go horizontally at each of those layers. Okay. No matter where I go in my UNS, no matter which broker I'm hitting, okay, I potentially can see everything in the UNS. So what would happen is the MES system that's living in the cloud, okay, is going to publish into the broker, probably through a load balancer because it's going to be horizontally scaled. It's going to hit the load balancer endpoint, and it is going to publish into a space, a namespace, its functional data, data modeled and information modeled. Okay. That is going to be copied to all the brokers. So if I have permission to subscribe to the namespace that the MES published to in the cloud, I will be able to see it on the edge. In the edge broker. The edge generally is going to be like it's in an area. There might be a broker running in the area, like where all the presses are. It might be running on each individual asset. But no, we are not suggesting what you put there. I mean, first off, it's riddled with incorrections. We do not say UNS is more than the edge. We say it is the structure of the business and all the events. In fact, let me say this. What is unified namespace? You can go to virtualfactory.online. You can see a sample UNS, a very basic one, and you can see the definition. I've posted this a million fucking times.
It is enforcing your definition of unified namespace, Walker.
I created the architecture. What do you want me to do? I created the architecture. You want me to just go, sorry guys, it's not right of me to have a definition. What do you want me to do, man?
Did you create unified namespace or did you discover unified namespace?
I think if I hadn't, I've coined the term, right?
Right. But like the architecture itself, did you create it or did you discover it? Was that the only thing that was going to work and you discovered it?
No. There were other, point to point is how everyone was doing domain driven design. So they didn't call it domain driven design back then, but they were doing domain driven design, but point to point design. So you would have the way that you modeled data the way you connected and connected and collected was not a function of building a data infrastructure. In fact, you didn't care about the data infrastructure. You cared about, this is why they called it data acquisition. You cared about acquiring the data point I need for a very specific reason. And you would connect it, you would immediately map it to where it was going to be consumed. So it would be consumed in a function, but it wouldn't live in an infrastructure. And I said, wait a minute, that's ridiculous. Why is it that I'm having to map the same temperature sensor to 6 different functions in Wonderware, for example?
Each one of them grabs it. Each one of them. Well,
Correct.
That's the whole thing of the beauty of MQTT was you're not connecting devices to applications, you're connecting devices to infrastructure.
Correct. And when I built the first UNS and from 2003 to 2000, it took 2 years to build the whole thing because I was using Dynamic Data Exchange, Data Highway Plus, the Dynamic Data Exchange, and then I was putting Excel spreadsheets on each of the supervisors' laptops and then on our workstation and so as long as they were on the intranet in the mine, then essentially each of the spreadsheets were subscribing to the same DDE topics in our workstation in our office. And so when they would open their spreadsheet, they would actually it was a hub and spoke architecture. We had built the UNS, and the UNS was actually living in a desktop running on an Excel spreadsheet running, in this office, and the Excel spreadsheets running on the supervisors' laptops were connected to our Excel spreadsheet. They were subscribing to the DDE topic over the network.
Interesting.
So, but here let me finish the UNS definition because this is coming up and everybody's like, Walker, definition. This is the definition. Okay, guys, this is the definition. Every UNS I build, this is the fucking definition. The structure of your business and all the events. It's a single source of truth for all data and information of the business. So current state right now, single source of truth. It's not system of ownership. It's single source of truth. It's the current state of the business. All the events, data, and information models contextualized and normalized. That is exactly what Paul was talking about all this stripped context. No, everything is fully contextualized in a UNS. That is, there are relationships between every data point by default because they're semantically organized. Okay. The place where the current state of the business lives. If I take a snapshot of a UNS at any given moment and take a slice of it, that's the current state right now. Okay. The hub through which the smart things in your business communicate with one another, including people. The architectural foundation of your Industry 4 and digital transformation initiative. How you execute your digital strategy is UNS. Why do we need it? We need it for scale. We need it for normalization of data, especially around AI and ML applications. We need it so that we have short time to value. What does that mean? It means that we have to be able to solve problems quickly. Therefore, we never use the length of time to solve a problem as a reason not to solve it. We need short time to value. Okay. We just stand on the shoulders of yesterday's solution. Security. It's inherently secure because one of the minimum technical requirements is edge driven. Okay. I hate to break the news to you. You know why the Purdue security model exists? Because of the inferiority of the server, the client server architecture. Because of the inferiority of serial networks.
They had to compensate.
Yes, UNS is omnipresent and omniscient. It is everywhere and it knows everything. Okay. And agility. You can create, I can have permanent descriptive topics, something like the serial number on a motor, the install date, the OEM, things that never change. They can be living right alongside an ethereal topic. That is a data point that gets published one time. And if someone's listening, they get it. If no one's listening, you don't even know it was ever published.
Could the location of that permanent topic be changed?
Yes, of course. Absolutely.
But it would have to be published again.
Yes.
But you could tie it back to where it was previously.
Correct.
Using like a tag ID.
This is how you use unified namespace. One of the biggest things is like end of line tester. This was a problem I wanted to solve. You got in the printing industry, it is very common to have, actually, let's do it in the molding, injection molding. This is really common to use an end-of-line tester with a vision system shared across 3 assets. So I have 3 different injection molding machines. They all make different products. One operator runs all 3. So only one machine's ever running at any given time. So what we do is we buy one end-of-line tester and we move the end-of-line tester to the machine that he's running. Okay, because I don't want to have 3 vision systems. I want one because I'm only ever using one at any given time. Okay, how do I collect the data? How do I know which machine the end-of-line tester is running on if I don't have that context? UNS gave us that context.
The context is the location in the namespace.
Correct. So what we did was very simple, is you had 3 switches that fucking end-of-line tester could get plugged into. A switch on line 1, a switch on line 2, a switch on line 3. Okay? Each of those switches had a unique MAC ID. So on plug-in, we just read the MAC ID. Oh, I'm on line 1. Therefore, I am publishing my data into the line 1 namespace.
That's pretty slick.
I plug into line 2, read the MAC ID. Oh, I'm on line 2. I'm publishing my data into line 2.
Doing it edge driven like that is so much better than having the operator enter it, because the second you leave the plant after training, they're going to forget to do it. And then you're going to think you're collecting line 1 data when it was really on line 2, and it's going to be all fucked up. And
right. Yeah. All right. Any questions in there? I can't believe we went 2 hours. Any questions in here, Vaughn, that we need to answer? Better option is getting the protocol added to another, like open telemetry. Yeah. It's true. So tomorrow I'm going to be publishing video. I'm doing a demo on Agentic AI. I gave you a little bit of insight into it. I have a bunch of sketches I'm going to go through. But the message that I really want to communicate to people is, I'm not, I didn't fall off the face of the earth. I'm just really, 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 really like crazy busy, and it'll go until mid-June. And then you'll see me back doing regular content. I will shoot some videos between now and then, but that's number one. Number two, you guys will see the announcement for Prove It 2026 coming out in the next couple of weeks. You've been given the sneak peek into what to expect. If there's anything you'd like to see us do or cover at Prove It in 2026, include it in the comments down below. But other than that, if there's no other questions, are data spaces being spoken about in the US yet, or is it just for us here in Europe? No, there's no, data spaces are discussed here. The question is how will they be applied? Actually, what is their actual value, and how will they be applied?
Data spaces?
Mm-hmm. We should shoot a separate video on it. What are data spaces? Vaughn, anything else? I shouldn't say better option, but I say wider adoption avenue. I've always thought the UNS is complementary to the Palantir ontology layer from the other end. Agreed. When someone asks me about Palantir's ontology layer, which is basically the semantic hierarchy of their you could argue that Palantir has a proprietary unified namespace sitting underneath their platform, and their ontology layer is how they expose it, right? The ontology layer is the semantic hierarchy with Palantir solutions. Why is it I don't promote Palantir solutions? It's the same reason I don't promote Nats. I mean, I'm not an open source Nazi. What I don't want, what I am though, is I am leery.
Like Peter Thiel's a big guy in Palantir, right?
Yeah, Peter Thiel. He was the big investor, and I think he still sits on their board.
You totally trust that guy, right?
No, not a million fucking years, man.
That's what I'm joking.
Yeah. Hell no. All right, this is a really good question. Does Arduino and Finder have a chance in industrial controls? The answer is absolutely, from a technical perspective. However,
brand recognition.
Yeah, I've worked very closely with Arduino in the last couple of years. We've promoted the Opto Wi-Fi. In fact, I got a bunch of Arduino devices back there. Excuse me. Very powerful stuff. Absolutely love. And in their industrial grade hardware is really impressive. The Portenta series. I'm a huge fan of in fact, I have an H3 sitting here somewhere. I absolutely love their stuff. The problem is that no one at Arduino really knows manufacturing. They know they know embedded control for hobbyists. And they've really struggled with going to market. Like, they should have never called it Arduino to begin with. They should have called it Portenta by Arduino. So they have a brand recognition issue.
The name itself, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, think about their price point. I mean, I find Arduino documentation frustrating. Yeah. No shit.
What did Dylan Dufresne said?
Yes. If you haven't read it, Unit X is a great book about the transition we're seeing in DoD. Yeah, it is drastic. I mean, sense prove it, Dylan. I mean, I'm stunned, if I'm being honest with you. It's not really prove it. It's really the Trump administration coming in and just the administration's priorities are different. Very interesting thing. Let's talk about this real quick and then we'll call it a day. So, SESMI, right? SESMI gets dollars from the federal government. Okay. Under the Biden administration, all of SESMI's language was around sustainability. It was around reducing energy costs. It was around green initiatives. Like, that's all their language
was. Now it's on reshoring.
Yeah, now it's about reshoring manufacturing.
Okay, look, let me ask you this.
And I'm okay. And I'm okay with that. It's just,
am I delusional?
That's part of the reason I don't want to work. I wouldn't want to work in those environments. Here's another thing. I want you to take a look at something. Oh my God. I saw this the other day. I don't want to shit on SESMI because I actually love those guys, but let me be a hair critical.
Am I delusional if I say I believe that tariffs will help reshore manufacturing? Like, am I delusional?
Of course not. Of course not. Yeah, that's not delusional. That's not delusional.
Maybe today we don't have the capabilities to manufacture a lot of those goods.
It's not delusional in any way, shape, or form. Why? Because the pattern is, if you look, what you're looking for after a policy change is, what is the initial tick? Is the initial tick up or is it down? So there's a tick up in reshoring, or is there a tick down in reshoring, or does it lay flat? And what was the first thing that happened? Amazon, Apple, like all these major manufacturers announced these huge initiatives to reshore, open up.
Obviously a good thing.
Those are obviously those are good things. Because
there's people who say it's not.
Well, those are stupid people. They're not going to come on here and debate. I mean, it's going to be somebody who's never worked in they're going to like, no one wants to work in manufacturing. That's not true. No one wants to work for that. One wants to.
That's the point.
No one wants to work for a legacy manufacturer. If the data doesn't support the claim that no one wants to work for Amazon on their manufacturing side. Okay, the data doesn't support the claim that no one wants to work for Tesla on their manufacturing. And what's the difference? They're very, very smart companies. Okay, they're very smart companies. I was looking at this the other day. Let me look at this. Is the SESMI Smart Manufacturing Executive Council? I think that's who we're talking about here. Is this the council I want to look at here real quick? Vaughn, is this the one I want to look? No, what's the council with hold on a second. Governance board. There you go. All right, let's take a look at SESME's governance board. This made me laugh out loud. Okay, seriously. Here is SESME's governance board, and this is me. This is just me giving. Share
the screen.
This is me just giving. This is just a little tongue in cheek because I love Jonathan Wise and I love Jonathan Dyke and the folks at SESME, especially the stuff that Matt Paris and Jonathan, those guys are doing on the working group, incredibly valuable. Okay, so take this for what you will, but let's just real quick, let's look at the what is it? The governance board, right? You said? Here we go. Here is the governance board for SESME. This will make you laugh out loud. Okay. First and foremost, Maria Araujo, who's the director and fellow technology and transformation at Johnson & Johnson. That's actually a good selection. Okay. Mark Besser, who's the vice president at some industrial AI company. David Brussel, who's the founder and vice president, executive director at the Manufacturing Leadership Council, which as far as I know, has never really, I think it's an important initiative, but they haven't really achieved anything. Like what's the impact that they've had, honestly? Okay. You got Catherine Cahalan, who's the CEO at Bennett. I don't know her. Greg Colvin, who's a technical fellow at Honeywell. I don't know Gregory, but he may or may not be a good option for the governance board. Ken Creasy, who's the corporate vice president of operations at Invio Automation. I've never heard of them, so how is he on the governance board? Like, if SESME is about promoting and investing in smart manufacturing in the United States, why would you have somebody
who's not about smart manufacturing?
Yeah, what has Ken Creasy achieved in smart manufacturing? You know what I mean? Dr. Huan Dai, who's a program manager at some energy company. Jim Davis, PhD at UCLA, Vice Provost Emeritus, SESME Program Oversight and Principal Investigator, UCLA. A lot of words there. John Dyke, CEO at SESME. John Dyke belongs there. I mean, John Dyke absolutely belongs on that governance board. John has been as close to automation in this industry as anyone I could possibly think of. You have Andrew Ellis, Vice President, Global Portfolio Engineering, Rockwell Automation. No one from Rockwell should be on the governance board.
But John Dyke is from Rockwell.
But he was no longer at Rockwell. But no one from Rockwell should be on that governance board. Seriously. Here's why. Everywhere Rockwell participates, it's not that there aren't good people at Rockwell. It's the culture at Rockwell. The culture at Rockwell is not manufacturer first. It's Rockwell first. It's Rockwell partner second. It is Rockwell channel partner third. Okay. It is the end user, the customer. It is the point of contact at the end user, the person in purchasing, fourth or fifth, and the actual manufacturer, the best interest of the operator, the best interest of the electrician or the mechanic is fucking dead last.
They put the interest of the purchaser before the company.
Oh, no question. No question.
They buy him a vacation home.
The most important person to Rockwell Automation is the purchaser in any manufacturer. And by the way, I hate picking. Rockwell is a great American company. Microsoft is a great American company. They should be awesome. The reason I'm hard on them is because they fucking know better. They should know better. Okay, but why is Rockwell on the governance board at SESME? What is right? Do me a favor, gang. Do me a favor. Anybody listen to this? If you work at Rockwell, I want you to give me one achievement Rockwell has in smart manufacturing. Something that's going to make me or someone in the Industry 4 community go, wow, that's impressive. Just one achievement. That's all I want. You're picking on Rockwell, but is any major PLC manufacturer any different?
Yes.
Yeah,
Siemens
absolutely.
was that fucking prove it.
Absolutely.
I said I want one of the big three to come at prove it. I want just one. And two of the three came.
Do you want me, like, do you know how hard it is for me to admit? It's not hard because I'd like to tell it like it is. But do you know how much it pains me to admit that Siemens gets it much more than Rockwell does?
Phoenix Contact gets it.
Phoenix Contact gets it.
Wago gets it.
Wago gets it. Opto 22.
They're probably more mid-size, but
is what you tell me. You tell me what is the best PLC on the market. That is your Swiss Army knife PLC, $10,000. Your $10,000 unit. Opto 22 Groove Epic. There's not even a fucking debate. It ain't even close.
Rip Bedrock Automation. Rest in peace.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What was the problem with Bedrock? They believed people cared more about security than they actually did. And by the way, and their guy, their vice or president or whatever, he and I got in a huge argument at ICC about it. And I'm like, listen, dude, your price point's too high. No, people care about security, but they don't care about it that much. No one is clamoring for air gaps in their fucking backplanes on the PLCs. I'm not hearing anyone clamoring for that.
I mean, the thing was bulletproof too. So if you were trying to,
Jesus Flores, associate director. And Lindy, Kevin Jones, CEO at ECM. Simon Jacobson, vice president at Gartner. Robert Graybill. Yeah. I mean, all right, here's a good one. Louis Grice, vice president of Phoenix Contact. That's a good choice. Howard Harari, PhD, director at NIST. I don't know him. Tom Heckman, founder and CTO at Sepasoft. Scott Whitlock, CEO at Flexware. I'll say this. I know Scott Whitlock fairly well. I'm the one who introduced him to inductive automation, and we had a couple of Zoom calls, and I taught I can't remember what their engineer was, but I invited them to work with me on a tier 1 automotive project so I could teach them how to do unified namespace. That's a good, one of the best architects I've ever met is a guy named Jason Toshlog, who is, I think he's the CTO at Flexware Innovation. He's one of those top 5 guys. Scott Whitlock would be a good choice there. Doug Lawson, CEO at ThinkIQ. ThinkIQ was originally like the incestuous relationship. It was originally supposed to be the platform that Sesame was using, and no longer. Tyler Soderstrom from ExxonMobil, good choice. Prasad Satyavolu at Accenture. Like, I look at this governance board and I'm like, there are very few people in here who have achieved anything in smart manufacturing. Very few.
Right.
I mean, granted, I don't know everybody on this list, but I know 80% of these people. I mean, that's what I was saying. If you want to see something funny, look at the governance board at Sesame. That is not a list of people that I would put on any governance board. There are people there who belong there, by the way. Like, but I mean, how is Louis Grice? Like, Phoenix Contact has a completely different philosophy than most of these folks here. I think Whitlock belongs there from Flexware. Flexware Innovation has done a lot of really cool shit. They're an innovative company, and they've been on the
products too.
Yeah, they've been on the bleeding edge. Flexware belongs. I mean, Whitlock belongs on there. I would definitely put him there. Actually, I wouldn't. I don't know if I would put Scott there. I probably would put Jason Toshlog there. Scott's a great engineer in his own right. Purdue engineer, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I don't have any issue with that.
Spark MES. They also have like a AGV type of integration platform.
Now, Flexware is a good company. I mean, we don't see eye to eye on.
Oh, but aren't they owned by
they're
Toshiba? No.
Yeah, no, Hitachi.
Okay.
Yeah, Hitachi bought them. But anyway, that doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense to me.
Nice.
You know who belongs on there?
Jeffrey Schrader.
Well, I would have said
Matt
Tony
Paris.
Payne.
Oh, Tony
I would have said Tony Payne, but yeah, Matt Paris from GE Hire. That's you want Matt Paris, you want the Jeff Schraders of the world, you want Tony Payne comes to mind. This is legacy. They don't know anything. These are not people who know anything about smart manufacturing. And by the way, again, right, no one that functions like the mafia should be on that governance board. Oh, I mean, there's a guy on here who, if you disagree with him, he doesn't give a fuck about your customers. He will not sell you licenses at all. And I would never do that. Like, there are people out there like, Alex Marcy from, what company is he with again?
You're going to make me edit this podcast, dude.
Oh.
You're gonna
there you go. I mean, he takes shots at me all the time.
Yeah. No,
but if he wanted to come to prove it, I would have invited him. If Rockwell Automation wanted to come, I would have invited them. As long as they met the minimum technical requirements and they abided by the rules.
Someone gave you a hard time for calling out that company that was like extorting a manufacturer for their pricing and talking shit in the Discord and behind your back. Platform formerly known as Libre.
Oh yeah.
Someone gave me shit. They're like, oh, that's a bad look. I was like, wait, did you actually listen to the? Did you?
What do you mean it's a bad look? Like, if you object, like if you have an objection to, like, if what you say is, this is the thing, like,
well, they're like, hey, it's a bad look to put a company down like that. And I'm like, well,
I didn't put a company down. What I did was I communicated the facts of an interaction with that company. And right. I gave them an opportunity to come on and defend themselves. I did not. Let me make something perfectly clear. I don't punch down. If you attack me, if you come at me, if you do something shady to me, I will fucking destroy you. I will destroy you. I will destroy you.
Yeah.
And if you come to me and you object to something I did, or you disagree with something I said, and you are right, I will acknowledge you're right and I will apologize. And anybody who works with me will tell you that's how I do it.
We need to have integrity within the community, and we only can accomplish that through transparency and holding each other accountable.
Correct.
So if you can't hold someone accountable,
this is why people's values matter. It's like, I don't work with companies whose primary value is the bottom line. It's okay if money is the most important thing to you, but that's not my value. I want to stay in business. I'll spend every fucking penny I have delivering on my mission. I'll spend every penny. All I tell my team is, it's your job to keep us in business. I am not looking at the bottom line every day, and never. So if you're a person who's treating the market like a zero-sum game, you know what I mean? If you're poaching people's employees, like if an engineer works for another company and I have a relationship with that company and one of their engineers comes to me and says, hey, I want to come work with you, I'll say, yeah, that's great. As long as me, you, and your current employer, we're all good with it. But I'm not stealing you from somebody. But go ahead and fucking cross me. Go ahead and take a shot at me and be wrong. And I'll fucking treat you the way you treat me. Got no problem with that.
You will end up on our YouTube channel.
Yeah. Not only that,
build this shit to not use it.
Well, and I had this lunch today. I had a lunch with some business partners today, and they were telling me this story about this guy in the industry. They saw him at a conference or something, and he's a real douche. The guy's he is an absolute douche. And that's okay. He's, you know, I don't think he's a very good engineer either, but that's beside the point. He's also a terrible human being. Probably one of the worst human beings I've ever met in my entire life. There are two people in our industry who I think are real pieces of shit. Like bad people, not good human beings at all. Only two I've ever met. And privately, everybody knows exactly who they are. You know, my team knows exactly who I think they are. But I'm not going to take shots at them publicly because that's not fair. But they were telling me a story about this one of these guys, and about how, you know, hey, I walked up to him and he basically like grabbed my badge, and he was, you know, he looked at my badge at the conference and he's like, "Oh, I know your company." And he's like, "But I don't know you." And then he like threw the badge off of him.
The fuck?
And
if someone did that to me, I would fucking.
And I said, listen, I said, let me say something real quick. There is zero fucking chance he would do that to me. Zero. Zero. I would pop his head like a pitbull. But that's not the point. The point is that there are the thing that matters is values. Like what people care about, what their core values are. That's what matters. Because that's what drives our decision making. All this other stuff, like when people say to me, "Hey Walker, you dropped too many F-bombs." Well, I dropped too many F-bombs for you. You know, there's an entire audience of people out there who are really valuable in this industry who have no problem with it. Like, think about it. You know, I read this thing the other day. It was an op-ed in the New York Post, and I don't want to get into politics, but I want to draw a correlation here. There was a guy who wrote a thing saying I was wrong about Donald Trump. He's like, apparently he's a Republican who hated Trump, and he's like, you know, Trump is this psycho, blah, 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 whatever. He goes, I was wrong about him. He goes, I never understood what his appeal was. And when I listened to the bombast and stuff, I never took him seriously, and I didn't think anyone else would. He goes, and I just didn't get him. He goes, but now I understand he was never talking to me. I was never his audience. You know, he was like, as an op-ed writer, he goes, I'm a part of the establishment. I'm a part of the elite. And so we conduct ourselves a certain way. And all the presidents, all the politicians that have come up, they were always speaking to us because they needed our favor. He's like, they needed me to write nice things about them in the opinion pages. He goes, but Donald Trump never cared about what I thought about him. So he was never talking to me. So all of us who were talking about I don't like the way he talks, and he was never talking to me. Donald Trump, and I said it took me years to figure it out. Donald Trump wasn't talking to me. And my objections to him with his behavior was irrelevant because he was talking to a different audience. You know what I mean? I worked on the plant floor for 12 years. Let me tell you, man, that's like working in a fucking locker room. It's like working in a locker room. They say shit to each other all day long that would get you fired from any job. All day. All day. That's who he was talking to. He was talking to Americans who love America, the people who build this country. That's who Donald Trump was always talking to. All right. I don't want to make it a political thing, but you want to know who I talk to? I'm talking to the people who were like me when I was coming up through my career. It's the moth to a flame. I'm not talking to all the people on this governance board. They listen to me. And you want to know why they listen to me? You want to know why they listen to me? Because of all of you, because of this community. Mm-hmm. What we have done as a community is we have won the results war. And believe me, there were people who were at Prove It who fucking hated the fact that they had to sit through a keynote that I was giving. And those are people who were members of the elite who didn't want this community to be right.
That's crazy.
You know? At the end of the day, I know that when I'm talking about stuff, I am talking to the people who get it. You know? And at the end of the day, The thing that brings us all together, it's not the way we talk. It's what we care about.
It's what we believe.
It's what we value. It's what our missions are. That's what brings us all together. And what I just said right here is something I've tried to communicate to people over and over and over again when they ask, how did you guys do this?
I got a quick call to action.
Yeah, man.
We're talking about doing an integrator program. Walker, you said, hey, I want to do this training for integrators who are either starting an integrator or they're trying to scale their integration business. This won't be something that's like just to the mastermind students. You would actually have to apply, tell us who you are, and then we will approve you. So we're trying to create like a really tight-knit group of integrators for like an integrator workshop or an integrator training program. So if you guys are interested in that, we're not sure if we're going to do it yet. We've been talking about doing an integrator program. We are going to do an integrator certification, but this integrator workshop that Walker's been talking about, giving you guys like kind of the inside, the actual KPIs, the actual metrics of how to run an integration business. Reach out to us if that's something that you'd be interested in. Again, it's going to be by application only. So not everyone's going to be able to qualify, but we would, if you're interested in that, let us know.
All right. And with that, thank you everybody for sticking to this. This is Joe Rogan length right here, man.
It's a good one.
It was a good one. I'm glad we had a chance to do it. I needed to communicate this stuff to the community.
2026 is in the ink.
Yes. 2026. So we'll do another podcast before the wedding. So probably in the next 10 days or so, but thank you guys for joining us. Like, subscribe, comment down below, and we'll see y'all in the next one.
See you guys.